The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles under a dome of clear crystal. 47 different alien species sat in their assigned seats, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some looked like giant insects with too many eyes. Others appeared as living rock formations that pulsed with inner light. A few resembled the sea creatures from a dozen different worlds. At the center of this gathering stood Ambassador Krex of the Zephyrian Empire. His skin looked like blue crystal, and when he moved, light danced across his surface. He had called this emergency meeting, and every being in the hall knew why. "Fellow council members," Krex said, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. "We face a threat unlike any we have seen in 10,000 years. The humans have grown too bold, too fast, too dangerous." Murmurs spread through the assembly. The Korthak representative, a creature that looked like a walking mountain of gray flesh, pounded his massive fist on his desk. "The humans have been expanding for only 200 years. In that time, they have claimed 47 worlds. It took my people 3,000 years to claim 20. A spider-like being from the Arachnid Collective clicked its mandibles. "They ignore our trade routes. They terraform planets without asking permission. They breed like parasites and spread across the galaxy." Krex raised one crystalline hand for silence. "The time has come to act. I propose we give humanity one final chance to submit to Council authority. If they refuse, we will show them why the Galactic Council has kept peace for 10 millennia. The vote was swift and decisive. 46 species voted yes. Only the Centaurians abstained, their representative shaking his reptilian head sadly. 3 days later, Admiral John Carter stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station orbiting Mars. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes like steel. He had fought in the colony wars and the asteroid rebellion. He thought he had seen everything until the communication console chirped with an incoming priority message. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Ryan Clark from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. It's marked as an official ultimatum." Carter felt his jaw tighten. "Put it on the main screen." The face of Ambassador Krex appeared, his crystal features cold and emotionless. "To the human species and their governing bodies. The Galactic Council has found humanity guilty of aggressive expansion, violation of established trade protocols, and dangerous terraforming practices that threaten galactic stability." Carter listened as Krex continued. "You have 30 standard galactic days to comply with the following terms. All human colonies beyond your original solar system must be abandoned. Your military fleet must be reduced to system defense only. You will submit to Council oversight and guidance as a probationary species." The transmission continued with more details, but Carter had heard enough. When it ended, he immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. President Kevin Walsh sat in the Oval Office when Carter's call came through. Walsh was younger than most presidents, elected on promises to defend human expansion rights. He had short brown hair and the kind of face that looked friendly until you saw his eyes. Those eyes had turned hard when the ultimatum arrived. "How bad is it, John?" Walsh asked. "Bad enough that we need Dr. Morgan here immediately," Carter replied. "This isn't about law or treaties. This is about fear." Dr. Lisa Morgan arrived at the White House within hours. She had served as humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Council before the relationship soured. She was a small woman with blonde hair, but her mind was sharp as a blade. She had spent 5 years learning how the council really worked. "They're terrified," she told Walsh and his cabinet. "Most of these species took thousands of years to achieve what we've done in 2 centuries. They see us as a virus that will spread across the galaxy and replace them." Secretary of Defense General Paul Martinez leaned forward. "Can we fight them? Numbers alone? No, they have thousands of ships and control most of the galaxy. But they've been at peace so long they've forgotten how to really fight. They think warfare is about big fleets meeting in open space." Walsh studied the map of human space displayed on the wall. 47 colonies, each one built by human sweat and determination. Billions of people who called these worlds home. "What are our options, Lisa?" Morgan's expression was grim. "We can submit and become their slaves, or we can show them why humans have conquered every environment we've ever encountered." On New Terra, the largest human colony world, Commander Steve Adams received the evacuation orders. He was a veteran of the mining conflicts on Kepler 442b, a planet where the gravity tried to crush human bones and the atmosphere could kill in minutes. He had learned that humans survived by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anything the universe threw at them. His wife, Captain Amy Rodriguez, commanded the destroyer Earth's Shield in the Outer Rim territories. She was patrolling the border when the first Council scout ships appeared. Through her ship's sensors, she watched the massive alien vessels moving with the slow confidence of predators who had never faced real resistance. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting at least 300 ships moving toward human space. More are arriving every hour." Amy studied the tactical display. The Council ships were huge, designed more for intimidation than efficiency. They moved in rigid formations that looked impressive but would be easy to predict in battle. "Send a message to Fleet Command," she ordered. "Tell them the Council is coming in force, but they're coming the way their textbooks taught them to fight. Someone needs to teach them about human tactics." Back on Earth, President Walsh called an emergency session of the Colonial Assembly. Representatives from every human world gathered via quantum communication link. The debate was short and fierce. The representative from Tau Ceti stood up, his face red with anger. "My world has 2 billion people. Are we supposed to abandon everything we've built? The Council has superior numbers," argued the delegate from Wolf 359. "Maybe we should consider their terms." Walsh let them argue for an hour before he called for silence. "The question isn't whether we can win a traditional war. The question is whether we're still human if we surrender everything that makes us who we are." The vote was close but decisive. 31 worlds voted to resist. 16 wanted to negotiate. 0 voted for complete surrender. Dr. Kate Phillips worked in the hidden laboratories beneath Luna City. She was humanity's leading expert on alien technology, and for the past year she had been reverse engineering captured Council equipment. What she had discovered would change everything. "Mr. President," she said during a secure briefing, "Council ships all use the same basic faster-than-light drive system. It's based on quantum tunneling through folded space. The technology is thousands of years old and it has a weakness they've never bothered to fix." Walsh leaned forward. "What kind of weakness?" "The kind that could turn their greatest advantage into their worst nightmare." 24 hours before the Council deadline expired, President Walsh stood before the cameras to deliver humanity's official response. The message would be broadcast across all human worlds and transmitted to every Council member species. "To the Galactic Council and any who would threaten human freedom," Walsh began, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute determination. "For 200 years, humanity has reached for the stars through courage, sacrifice, and the refusal to accept limitations. We have built homes on worlds that tried to kill us. We have thrived in conditions that would destroy lesser species." He paused, letting his words reach across the light years to alien ears. "You offer us slavery dressed up as protection. You demand we abandon our children and grandchildren to prove we are worthy of your approval. You have forgotten that humans earned their place in this galaxy, not by asking permission, but by taking what they needed to survive." The final words of humanity's response were simple, direct, and would echo through galactic history. "You want to test humanity's resolve? Come try." The Galactic Council's war fleet entered the Sol system like a storm of metal and energy. 300 ships of different designs but similar purpose moved in perfect formation toward the inner planets. At their head flew the massive dreadnought Stellar Dominion, a ship so large it had its own gravity field and carried a crew of 50,000. Fleet Commander Zolth stood on the bridge of his flagship, his forearms crossed behind his back. He was a Korthak, a species that had conquered dozens of worlds through superior firepower and relentless assault tactics. His gray skin was marked with the scars of 100 battles, and his small red eyes had watched entire civilizations surrender, rather than face his fleet. "Communications," Zolth rumbled in his deep voice. "Send the standard surrender demand to all human installations. Tell them they have 1 hour to abandon their positions and prepare for Council occupation." The communications officer, a thin, insect-like being from the Mantid Collective, clicked his response. "Message sent, Fleet Commander. We are also scanning for human defensive positions." Zolth studied the tactical display, expecting to see the desperate scrambling of a species facing extinction. Instead, he saw something that made him pause. The asteroid mining stations were empty. The orbital shipyards around Mars showed no activity. Even the massive defense platforms that intelligence reports had described were powering down. "Where are they?" he muttered. Admiral Mike Turner watched the Council fleet from his hidden command post inside the largest asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. The rock had been hollowed out over 30 years and turned into a fortress that looked like nothing more than another piece of space debris. Turner was an old soldier who had learned his trade in the worst places humanity had ever tried to live. He had fought pirates in the asteroid mines, rebels on the ice moons of Saturn, and corporate armies on the colony worlds. He knew that sometimes the best way to win a fight was to make the enemy think there was no fight to begin with. All civilian transports clear? He asked his aide. 12 million people evacuated to hidden facilities throughout the belt, Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Webb reported. The Council thinks they're conquering empty worlds. Turner smiled grimly. Let them land. Let them think they've won. Then we'll show them what humans do to invaders. Captain Dan Foster drifted in space 300 kilometers from the Council fleet, his stealth ship Silent Hunter, invisible to their sensors. Foster was young for a ship captain, barely 30, but he had grown up in the void between stars. He could pilot a ship through an asteroid field blindfolded, and had once outrun 3 pirate vessels with a cargo hauler that should have been scrapped years ago. His ship was small, fast, and equipped with experimental technology that bent light around its hull. To the Council's sensors, it simply did not exist. Target acquired, his weapons officer whispered. Council supply ship isolated from the main fleet. Foster studied the alien vessel through his scope. It was huge and slow, designed to carry food and ammunition to thousands of troops. It would be missed when it disappeared, but not immediately. Fire, Foster ordered. The torpedo struck the Council ship's reactor core. The explosion lit up space for several seconds before fading to nothing. One less supply ship. One small step toward evening the odds. 3 hours later, Fleet Commander Zolth received the first of many disturbing reports. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we've lost contact with the supply convoy in Sector 7. Also, the advanced scouts near Jupiter have gone silent. Zolth's scarred face tightened. Send a patrol to investigate. The patrol found wreckage and bodies, but no sign of the attackers. The human ship struck like ghosts, appearing long enough to kill before vanishing back into the void. Dr. Kate Phillips worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the surface of Luna City. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers raced to complete the weapon that would change the course of the war. She had discovered that Council ships used quantum entanglement to achieve faster-than-light travel. But the same technology that made them fast also made them vulnerable. Status report, she called out to her team. Dr. Mary Thompson looked up from her console. The quantum disruptor is ready for field testing. If our calculations are correct, we can disable any Council ship that uses their standard drive system. Phillips allowed herself a small smile. Not just disable. We can trace their quantum signatures back to their points of origin. For the first time, we'll know where their homeworlds are, Commander. Steve Adams prepared his troops on the hidden base called Sanctuary 7. The base was built inside a dead comet that drifted through space, looking like any other piece of ice and rock. Adams had 3,000 Marines under his command, all volunteers who knew they might not see Earth again. Listen up, Adams told his assembled officers. The Council thinks humans fight like they do. Big fleets, fixed battles, surrender when you're outnumbered. They're about to learn that humans fight differently. Major Chris Murphy stepped forward. What are our orders, sir? We're going to hit their supply lines, their communication relays, their forward bases. We're going to make them afraid to sleep. Every time they think they have us figured out, we're going to do something they never expected. Adams looked at the faces of his officers. They were young and old, men and women from a dozen different worlds, but they all had the same expression. They were ready to fight. Captain Amy Rodriguez positioned her destroyer Earth's Shield near the edge of the Kuiper Belt, where ice and rock provided perfect cover for hit-and-run attacks. Her crew of 60 was small compared to the 1,000-being crews of Council warships, but they knew their ship like it was part of their own bodies. Council heavy cruiser approaching, her sensor operator reported. Looks like it's conducting a sweep pattern. Amy studied the tactical display. The Council ship was following a predictable search pattern, the kind taught in military academies across the galaxy. It was professional, thorough, and completely unsuited for fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules. All stop, Amy ordered. Let it pass over us. Then we follow it home. The Council ship passed within 50 kilometers of Amy's position without detecting her. When it turned to head back to the main fleet, Amy's ship followed at a safe distance. For 6 hours, she tracked the alien vessel as it returned to its base. What she found was beyond her expectations. The Council had established a forward supply depot in the asteroid field near Ceres. Dozens of ships came and went, carrying supplies to the invasion fleet. It was exactly the kind of target that could cripple their entire operation. "Send a coded transmission to Admiral Turner," Amy ordered. "Tell him we've found their weak spot." The attack on the Ceres depot came at 0300 hours ship time, when most of the Council crews would be sleeping. Turner had assembled a strike force of 30 small ships, each one crewed by volunteers who had trained for this kind of mission their entire lives. The depot's defenders never had a chance. Human ships darted between the massive Council vessels like angry wasps, their weapons striking at engines, communication arrays, and weapon systems. In 20 minutes, the battle was over. The depot was destroyed, along with supplies meant to last the invasion fleet for 3 months. Commander Adams watched the explosion from his hidden base, the light visible even at this distance. "That should get their attention," he said with satisfaction. It did. Fleet Commander Zolth stared at the reports coming in from across human space. Hit-and-run attacks, sabotage, ships that appeared and disappeared like nightmares. In 3 days he had lost 40 vessels and still had not seen the human main fleet. "This is impossible," Zolth growled to his staff. "Where is their fleet? Where are their bases? How are they coordinating these attacks?" His intelligence officer looked nervous. "Sir, our analysts believe the humans are using tactics not seen in galactic warfare for over 5,000 years. They're not fighting to hold territory. They're fighting to bleed us dry." Zolth's red eyes blazed with anger. "Then we will show them the cost of defying the Council. Prepare the planet crackers. If they want to hide among the asteroids, we will turn every rock in this system to dust." The war was about to escalate beyond anything the galaxy had seen for millennia. The Council was about to learn that when humans were pushed to the edge, they did not fall. They pushed back. Admiral John Carter stood in the command center of Sanctuary 7, surrounded by the best military minds humanity had ever produced. The hidden base buzzed with activity as reports came in from across human space. The Council fleet was growing frustrated, their rigid tactics proving useless against human guerrilla warfare. General Paul Martinez spread a holographic map across the central table. "They're getting desperate," he said, pointing to red markers that showed Council fleet movements. "Intelligence reports they're moving planet-killer weapons toward our colonial worlds." Colonel Nancy Webb looked up from her datapad. "Confirmed. 3 dreadnoughts equipped with surface bombardment systems are heading toward New Terra. They're planning to make an example." Carter felt a cold anger settle in his chest. Planet killers meant the Council was done playing by their own rules. If they wanted to escalate, humanity would show them what escalation really meant. "Where do we stand with Dr. Phillips' project?" Carter asked. "Ready for operational testing," Martinez replied. "But John, what she's proposing goes beyond anything we've ever considered. If this works, we're not just fighting a war anymore. We're rewriting the balance of power in the galaxy." Carter looked at each officer in turn. These were people who had followed him through impossible situations before. They trusted his judgment, but this decision would affect billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. "Bring her in," Carter said quietly. Dr. Kate Phillips entered the command center carrying a data case that contained humanity's most dangerous secret. She looked tired after weeks of nonstop work, but her eyes burned with the intensity of someone who had found a way to win an unwinnable war. "Admiral," she said, setting the case on the table, "the quantum disruptor is ready. More importantly, we've managed to crack the Council's navigation databases from the ships we captured." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Hundreds of star systems glowed in different colors, each one representing a Council member world. Every Council ship carries quantum navigation data for their entire network. It's how they coordinate fleet movements across galactic distances. The problem is, the same quantum entanglement that makes their navigation possible also makes it traceable. Martinez leaned forward. "Explain that in simple terms." Phillips pointed to a cluster of blue stars. "These are Zephyrian worlds. Red ones are Korthak territories. Green are Mantid systems. For the first time in human history, we know exactly where every Council species lives." Carter studied the display, his mind already calculating possibilities. "What can we do with this information?" "That depends on how far we're willing to go," Phillips replied. She opened her data case and pulled out a device the size of a coffee cup. It looked harmless, just metal and crystal circuits, but Carter could sense the power contained within. This is a stellar destabilization device. We call it a stellar bomb. Plant this near any star, and we can trigger a cascade reaction that will cause the star to go nova. The command center fell silent. Outside, Carter could hear the normal sounds of a military base. People walking, machines humming, the distant chatter of communications. It all seemed very far away. How many worlds would that destroy? Webb asked quietly. Depends on the system. An average of 4 to 6 planets per star, maybe 1 billion lives per system. Carter looked at the galaxy map again. Each star represented entire civilizations, billions of beings who had families, dreams, fears just like humans did. But those same beings had declared war on humanity with the intention of wiping out every human colony. Show me the test results, Carter said. Captain Amy Rodriguez led the mission to capture the Council database. Her target was a Council communication relay station in the Wolf 359 system, a heavily defended facility that coordinated fleet movements across 3 sectors. Remember, Amy told her boarding party as their ships approached the station, we need those computers intact. Everything else is expendable. The attack came without warning. Human ships emerged from the asteroid field like predators. Their weapons focused on the station's defenses rather than its hull. In minutes, the relay's weapon systems were destroyed, and its shields collapsed. Lieutenant Ryan Clark led the boarding team through the station's corridors. Council defenders fired energy weapons that could cut through steel, but human combat armor had been designed to survive in the most hostile environments in the galaxy. The aliens fought bravely, but they were not prepared for the brutal efficiency of human close-quarters combat. Database secured, Clark reported as his team reached the main computer core, downloading everything. The information they captured was beyond their wildest hopes. Not just navigation data, but detailed intelligence files on every Council species. Their military capabilities, their economic systems, their social structures, and most importantly, their fears. Intelligence officer Lieutenant Tony Baker spent 3 days analyzing the captured data in a secure facility on Luna. What he found changed everything humanity thought they knew about the Galactic Council. Sir, Baker reported to Admiral Carter via secure communication. The Council isn't what they pretend to be. Most of these species are evolutionary dead ends. They achieved space travel thousands of years ago, then stopped advancing. They've survived by forming a collective that destroys any species that shows signs of surpassing them. Carter leaned back in his chair. How many species have they eliminated? Based on these records, at least 47 in the past 10,000 years. The pattern is always the same. A young species develops faster than light travel. The Council offers them membership, then gradually restricts their expansion and technological development. If the species resists, they're eliminated. And now it's our turn. Yes, sir. But Admiral, there's something else. According to their own psychological profiles, most Council species are terrified of extinction. It's why they formed the collective in the first place. They're so afraid of being replaced that they've dedicated their entire civilization to preventing change. Carter felt a cold smile cross his face. Fear. We can work with fear. Dr. Mary Thompson worked alongside Phillips to refine the stellar bomb technology. Thompson was a weapons specialist who had designed the plasma cannons that gave human ships their edge in close combat. Now she was creating something that could destroy entire solar systems. The quantum entanglement effect is the key, Thompson explained to a group of select officers. Council stars are mostly young, stable stars that would normally burn for billions of years. But stellar fusion is a delicate balance. Disrupt that balance in the right way and the star becomes unstable. She showed them a simulation of what would happen. A small device planted near a star's surface would create a quantum resonance that interfered with the nuclear fusion process. Within hours, the star would begin to fluctuate. Within days, it would go nova. How many devices would we need to eliminate the Council's ability to make war? Carter asked. 17 systems would destroy their primary military production facilities and eliminate roughly 60% of their total population. The remaining species would be scattered across hundreds of minor worlds with no ability to coordinate large-scale military action. Commander, Steve Adams volunteered to lead the mission that would plant the stellar bombs. He selected 16 other ship commanders. each one a veteran of the hit-and-run attacks that had frustrated the Council fleet for weeks. "This is a one-way mission for most of us," Adams told his team during their final briefing. "The stellar bombs have a limited range. We'll need to get close to each target star, plant the device, and then try to reach minimum safe distance before detonation." Captain Matt Johnson raised his hand. "What's minimum safe distance?" 20 light-years. The quantum shockwave from a stellar detonation will disrupt faster than light travel for anything closer than that." Captain Chris Murphy whistled softly. "Some of these systems are in the middle of Council space. We'll never make it to 20 light-years before they catch us." Adams nodded grimly. "That's why it's a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to back out can do so now with no shame." No one moved. President Kevin Walsh received the final mission briefing in the secure communications room beneath the White House. The plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. 17 ships would simultaneously strike at the heart of Council civilization, destroying their most important worlds in a coordinated attack that would last less than 6 hours. "Mr. President," Admiral Carter said over the secure channel, "once we begin this operation, there's no going back. The Council will know it was us, and they'll respond with everything they have left." Walsh looked at the intelligence reports spread across his desk. Council fleets were already moving planet-killer weapons toward human worlds. They had made their choice to escalate beyond conventional warfare. "How long do our people have once the operation begins?" "Our computer models suggest the Council's remaining forces will attempt a final assault on Earth within 72 hours of the first stellar detonation. It will be everything they have left in one desperate attack." Walsh closed his eyes and thought about the 2 billion people living on New Terra, the families on the mining colonies, the children who had been born among the stars and knew no other home. Admiral John Carter stood on the bridge of the command ship Terra's Fury, watching as 17 dots moved across the tactical display toward their assigned targets. Each dot represented a ship carrying a stellar bomb and a crew that knew they were flying into history. Operation Reckoning had begun. "All teams report ready," Communications Officer Ryan Clark announced. "Synchronized detonation in T-6 hours." Carter felt the weight of command heavier than ever before. In 6 hours, 17 star systems would die, taking billions of lives with them. But the alternative was the slow extinction of humanity under Council rule. Sometimes survival required choices that would haunt you forever. Captain Chris Murphy guided his stealth ship Shadow Strike through the outer edges of the Zephyrian home system. The star ahead of him burned with a blue-white light that had warmed the crystalline cities of Zephyria Prime for 3,000 years. In 4 hours, that same star would become a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Through his ship's sensors, Murphy could see the traffic around the Zephyrian homeworld. Cargo ships carried food and supplies. Passenger vessels brought families to visit relatives. Military patrols moved in lazy orbits, unaware that death was approaching at light speed. "Target acquired," his navigation officer reported. "Stellar bomb deployment zone mapped and confirmed." Murphy looked at the device secured in his ship's cargo bay. It was smaller than a refrigerator, but it contained enough destructive power to end a civilization. Dr. Phillips had explained the science behind it, but Murphy preferred simpler explanations. Point it at a star, activate it, and everything within 20 light-years would die screaming. "Deploy the bomb," Murphy ordered. "Then get us out of here." Commander Matt Johnson approached the Korthak military stronghold of Torvak with the same calm he had shown during the Battle of Kepler Station. The system contained the main training academies and weapons factories for the Korthak war machine. Destroying it would cripple their ability to replace losses. The Korthak had turned their entire system into a fortress. Weapon platforms orbited every planet. Patrol ships moved in complex patterns designed to detect any intrusion. Their defenses were impressive by galactic standards. They were not prepared for human ingenuity. Johnson's ship was disguised as a Council courier vessel, complete with false identification codes taken from captured databases. To the Korthak sensors, he was just another messenger carrying routine dispatches. "Approaching stellar deployment zone," his pilot reported. "Korthak patrols are maintaining standard distance." Johnson watched the massive star that powered the Korthak Empire. Soon that star would become their grave. Deploy and retreat, let's finish this. On Earth, President Kevin Walsh sat in the White House Situation Room with his senior staff. Wall-mounted displays showed the progress of all 17 missions in real time. Each ship was represented by a small green dot moving deeper into enemy territory. Status report, Walsh requested. Secretary of Defense Martinez consulted his datapad. 14 teams have reached their deployment zones. Teams 7, 12, and 15 are dealing with heavier than expected resistance, but they're still on schedule. Walsh nodded, his face showing none of the turmoil he felt inside. History would judge him for this decision. If humanity survived, he might be remembered as the president who saved the species. If they failed, he would be the man who started a galactic war that ended in human extinction. Time to detonation? 2 hours, 17 minutes. Captain Tony Baker fought his way through a squadron of mantid interceptors as he approached their homeworld. The insect-like aliens were faster than most Council species, their ships darting through space like angry wasps. But Baker had grown up racing speeders through the asteroid belts, and no mantid pilot could match a human's reflexes. Hull breach on Deck 3, his damage control officer reported. We're losing atmosphere. Seal it off, Baker ordered, spinning. His ship threw a corkscrew maneuver that brought him within weapons range of the nearest mantid fighter. His plasma cannons tore through the alien ship's armor like paper. The mantid homeworld grew larger in his view screen, a brown and green sphere covered with the geometric hive cities that housed billions of the insect people. Baker felt no satisfaction at what he was about to do, but he felt no regret either. The Mantids had voted for humanity's extinction. Now they would learn the cost of that decision. Stellar bomb deployed, his weapons officer announced. Detonation in 93 minutes. Baker turned his ship away from the dying system and pushed his engines toward maximum speed. If he was lucky, he might reach minimum safe distance before the star went nova. If not, he would die knowing he had completed his mission. Dr. Kate Phillips monitored the operation from her laboratory on Luna. Banks of quantum sensors tracked the stellar bombs as they took position near their target stars. Each device would create a cascade reaction that disrupted the delicate balance of nuclear fusion, turning stable stars into cosmic bombs. All devices report successful deployment, she announced to Admiral Carter. Quantum resonance patterns are nominal. Detonation will occur on schedule. Phillips had spent months perfecting the technology, but she still felt sick thinking about what was about to happen. The galaxy had never seen weapons like this. After today, the very concept of warfare would change forever. Fleet Commander Zolth received the first reports from his patrol ships with growing confusion. Human vessels had been detected in 17 different systems, all of them far from any legitimate military targets. The ships had appeared, deployed, some kind of device near each system's star, then fled. What kind of device? Zolth demanded. His intelligence officer, a nervous mantid named Click, consulted the sensor readings. Unknown technology, Fleet Commander. The devices appear to be generating some kind of quantum field that interferes with stellar radiation patterns. Zolth felt a chill run through his massive frame. Contact all system defense commanders. I want those devices destroyed immediately. It was already too late. The stellar bombs had been designed to resist any attempt at removal once activated. Council ships that approached the devices found their systems disrupted by the same quantum fields that would soon destroy their stars. Captain Amy Rodriguez was halfway to minimum safe distance when the first star went nova. Her ship's sensors automatically dimmed to protect her crew's vision, but the explosion was still visible as a brilliant point of light that outshone everything else in the sky. Holy God, her navigator whispered. We actually did it. Rodriguez watched as her tactical display updated to show the destruction spreading through the Zephyrian system. The star had gone supernova, sending waves of radiation and plasma racing outward at a significant fraction of light speed. Everything within the system's boundaries would be incinerated within hours. Contact Admiral Carter, she ordered. Tell him the Zephyrian system is gone. Similar reports came in from across the galaxy as 17 stars died in carefully orchestrated sequence. The Korthak military academies vanished in nuclear fire. The mantid hive worlds were scoured clean by stellar radiation. Ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. On the Council's capital world, emergency sessions were called as news of the stellar destructions reached them. Species that had never known defeat watched in horror as their homeworlds disappeared from the galactic map. Ambassador Krex stood before the emergency assembly, his crystalline skin flickering with stress patterns that had not been seen among his people for 1,000 years. "The humans have destroyed 17 systems," he announced, his voice cracking with emotion. "Billions of our people are dead." The surviving council members erupted in panic. Some called for immediate surrender. Others demanded total war using every weapon at their disposal, including the planet killers that violated every treaty the Council had ever signed. The Centaurian representative, who had abstained from the original vote for war, stood slowly. "I warned you," he said quietly. "I told you the humans were different. They do not fight for honor or territory. They fight for survival. And a species that fights for survival will do anything to win." Fleet Commander Zolth received new orders that changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. The surviving Council species had authorized the use of weapons that had been banned for 5,000 years. Planet crackers that could split worlds in half. Biological weapons that could sterilize entire ecosystems. Quantum bombs that could collapse space itself. "Prepare the ultimate deterrent," his orders read. "If humanity wants total war, we will show them what total war means." Zolth looked at his fleet reduced now to fewer than 200 ships after weeks of human hit-and-run attacks. It was not enough to conquer human space through conventional means, but it might be enough to make the humans pay such a terrible price for their victory that they would think twice about challenging galactic order again. "Set course for Earth," Zolth ordered. "If we are going to die, we will make sure the humans remember the cost of defying the Galactic Council." The final battle was coming, and neither side would survive it unchanged. The final battle began in the Proxima Centauri system, where Admiral John Carter had assembled every ship humanity could spare. 147 vessels formed a defensive shell around New Proxima, humanity's newest colony world. It was not much compared to the Council's remaining fleet, but it would have to be enough. Fleet Commander Zolth approached with everything the Council had left, nearly 200 ships carrying weapons that violated every treaty ever signed. Planet crackers that could split worlds apart, biological weapons that would poison entire ecosystems for centuries, quantum torpedoes that could collapse space itself into black holes. "Sir," Captain Amy Rodriguez reported from the bridge of her flagship, Earth's Vengeance. "Council fleet is approaching in standard attack formation. They're not even trying to hide their planet killer weapons." Carter studied the tactical display from his command ship. The Council ships moved with the desperate fury of a cornered animal. They had lost 17 homeworlds and billions of their people. Now they wanted revenge, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," he announced on the fleet command frequency. "The enemy is coming with everything they have. They mean to end this war by making Earth uninhabitable, even if they have to die to do it. We will not let that happen." Dr. Kate Phillips worked frantically in the quantum research station hidden in the asteroid belt. Around her, teams of scientists made final preparations for humanity's last secret weapon. The stellar bombs had been impressive, but what they were about to attempt would reshape the very structure of galactic civilization. "Status report," she called to her team. Dr. Mary Thompson looked up from her console, sweat beading on her forehead despite the station's climate control. "Quantum disruptors are in position throughout Council space. The network is ready for activation." Phillips allowed herself a moment of pride. During the stellar bombing campaign, human ships had done more than just plant star killers. They had seeded the galaxy with devices that could manipulate quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Not just disabling ships, but preventing entire species from using faster-than-light travel. "One activation," Phillips said quietly, "and every surviving Council ship will be stranded wherever they happen to be. No retreat, no reinforcements, no escape." The battle started badly for humanity. Council dreadnoughts pounded the human defensive line with weapons that could crack continents. The first human ships to die were the destroyers on the outer perimeter, their hulls torn apart by energy beams that burned hotter than stellar cores. Captain Chris Murphy commanded a squadron of fighters against odds that would have been impossible for any other species. His pilots flew their small ships between the massive council vessels like insects attacking giants, their weapons striking at sensor arrays and communication systems. Blue Squadron, target the command ship's bridge, Murphy ordered, rolling his fighter through a storm of defensive fire. If we can blind their fleet coordination, we might have a chance. Council plasma bolts filled space around Murphy's ship, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize his fighter. But humans had learned to fly in the worst conditions the galaxy could offer. Murphy's pilots danced through the firestorm, their weapons finding gaps in the alien defenses. Colonel Nancy Webb commanded the ground forces preparing to defend New Proxima if the space battle was lost. Her troops had spent weeks turning the colony into a fortress, but everyone knew that conventional defenses would not stop the weapons the Council was bringing. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "Admiral Carter is requesting final confirmation for Operation Lockdown." Webb looked at the tactical displays showing the space battle above. Human ships were dying fast, but they were making the Council pay for every kill. Still, the math was simple. Humanity could not win through conventional warfare. "Tell the Admiral that ground forces confirm readiness for lockdown," Webb replied. "We're as ready as we'll ever be." Fleet Commander Zolth watched from his flagship as human resistance began to crumble. The humans fought with typical desperation, but they simply did not have enough ships to stop his advance. Soon his planet crackers would be in range of the human colony world. "Weapons status," Zolth ordered. "Planet killer systems charged and ready," his weapons officer reported. "We can begin bombardment in 30 minutes. Zolth felt a grim satisfaction. The humans had shown the galaxy what happened when you challenged established order. Now the galaxy would see what happened when you made the Council truly angry. President Kevin Walsh received Admiral Carter's final transmission in the White House Situation Room. The message was brief and coded, but Walsh understood its meaning. The conventional battle was lost, but humanity still had one card left to play. "Authorization confirmed," Walsh replied. "Operation Lockdown is approved." Across the galaxy, quantum disruptors that had been placed months earlier came online simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating to any species that relied on Council technology for faster-than-light travel. Dr. Phillips watched her instruments as the quantum network activated. "Field generation stable," she reported. "Quantum lockdown is in effect across all targeted systems." The effect hit the Council fleet like an invisible wall. Ships that had crossed the galaxy in days suddenly found their faster-than-light drives completely useless. Engines that had functioned for thousands of years simply stopped working. "Sir," Zolth's engineering officer reported in panic, "all FTL systems are offline. We're reading massive quantum interference across the entire fleet." Zolth stared at his tactical display as red warning lights appeared across every ship under his command. They were stranded in this system with no way to call for reinforcements or retreat to friendly territory. "How is this possible?" Zolth demanded. The answer came from Admiral Carter's ship in the form of a general broadcast to all Council vessels. "Fleet Commander Zolth." Carter's voice carried clearly across the communication channels. "You are now experiencing humanity's final gift to the galaxy. Every Council ship in known space has been cut off from faster-than-light travel. You cannot run, you cannot call for help, and you cannot escape the consequences of your actions." Captain Amy Rodriguez pressed the attack as the Council fleet found itself trapped and increasingly desperate. Without the ability to retreat, Council commanders started making reckless decisions, breaking formation to attempt suicide runs against human positions. "All ships, focus fire on the dreadnoughts," Amy ordered. "They're carrying the planet killers. We cannot let those weapons reach the surface." The space battle turned into a brutal slugging match as both fleets pounded each other at close range. Council ships were larger and more heavily armed, but human crews were faster and more creative in their tactics. Commander Steve Adams led a boarding action against a Council heavy cruiser, his Marines fighting through corridors filled with desperate aliens who knew they would never see their homeworlds again. The fighting was savage and personal, but humans had advantages that no Council species could match. "The ship is ours," Adams reported after 6 hours of corridor-by-corridor combat. "We've secured their biological weapons. These things could have poisoned every living thing on New Proxima." Similar actions played out across the battlefield as human forces captured or destroyed Council ships carrying planet-killer weapons. The aliens fought bravely, But they were not prepared for the relentless aggression of a species that had learned warfare in the harshest environments the galaxy could offer. Fleet Commander Zalth made his final decision when it became clear that his fleet was beaten. Rather than surrender, he ordered his remaining ships to ram the human defensive line. If the Council was going to die, they would take as many humans with them as possible. All ships prepare for final assault, Zalth ordered, for the honor of the Galactic Council. The last phase of the battle was chaos as damaged Council ships threw themselves against human defenses in suicide attacks. Some broke through, their dying crews managing to damage human vessels before their ships exploded. But it was not enough to change the outcome. Admiral Carter watched as the last Council dreadnought exploded against the hull of a human heavy cruiser. Both ships died together, their crews adding their names to the long list of casualties this war had claimed. "Ceasefire," Carter ordered. "The battle is over." The silence that followed was broken only by rescue signals from damaged ships on both sides. In 6 hours of fighting, the Council's last fleet had been destroyed. The war was over. 3 months later, the surviving Council species gathered in what remained of their capital system to sign the surrender documents. The ceremony took place aboard Admiral Carter's flagship, with representatives from 31 surviving alien civilizations present. Ambassador Krex, one of the few Zephyrian survivors, signed the surrender documents with shaking hands. "The Galactic Council surrenders unconditionally to humanity," he said, his voice barely audible. "We acknowledge human sovereignty over this arm of the galaxy." President Walsh accepted the surrender with appropriate dignity, but his terms were not negotiable. The surviving Council species would abandon all claims to human territory, pay reparations for the attempted genocide, and submit to human oversight of their military activities.